Hi students, it's Miss Bale from English Tree, and this week we're going to be reading the interesting narrative of the life of Olaudah Equiano, a former slave. So we are going to be annotating for the main idea and persuasive impact of the story by highlighting and making notes about factual details, personal reflections, strong descriptive language, and the required vocabulary: loathsome, wretched, and dejected. So I opened with Cami, and we have practiced this before. I want to make sure I'm on markup because I want to be ready to highlight. The first thing I'm going to do is read through the story. So the first read. In the first several chapters of his autobiography, Olaudah Equiano describes how slave traders kidnapped him and his sister from their home in West Africa and transported them to the African coast. During this 6th or 7th month journey, Equiano was separated from his sister and held at a series of way stations. After reaching the coast, Equiano was shipped with other captives to North America. The following account describes this horrifying journey. So we're just reading a little bit of his full book that he wrote. So it's just an excerpt of the book. At last, when the ships had got in all her cargo, they made ready with many fearful noises, and we were all put under deck, so that we could not see how they managed the vessel. But this disappointment was the least of my sorrow. The stench of the hold while we were on the coast was so intolerably loathsome that it was dangerous to remain there for any time, and some of us had been permitted to stay on the deck for the fresh air. But now that the whole ship's cargo were confined together, it became absolutely pestilential. The closeness of the place and the heat of the climate added to the number in the ship, which was so crowded that each had scarcely room to turn himself, almost suffocated us. This produced copious perspiration, so that air soon became unfit for respiration from a variety of loathsome smells, and brought on the sickness among the slaves, of which many died, thus falling victims to the improvident avarice, as I may call it, of their purchasers. This wretched situation was again aggravated by the galling of the chains, now become insupportable, and the filth of the necessary tubs into which the children often fell and were almost suffocated. The shrieks of the women and the groans of the dying rendered the whole a scene of horror almost inconceivable. Happily, perhaps for myself, I was soon reduced so low here that it was thought necessary to keep me almost always on deck. And from my extreme youth, I was not put in fetters. In this situation, I expected every hour to share the fate of my companions, some of whom were almost daily brought upon deck at the point of death, which I began to hope would soon put an end to my miseries. Often did I think many of the inhabitants of the deep much more happy than myself. I envied them the freedom they enjoyed, and as often wished I could change my condition for theirs. Every circumstance I met with served only to render my state more painful and heightened my apprehensions and my opinion of the cruelty of the whites. One day they had taken a number of fishes, and when they had killed and satisfied themselves with as many as they thought fit, to our astonishment who were on deck, rather than give any of them to us to eat, as we expected, they tossed the remaining fish into the sea again, although we begged and prayed for some as well as we could, but in vain, and some of my countrymen, being pressed by hunger, took an opportunity, when they thought no one saw them, of trying to get a little privately, but they were discovered, and the attempt procured them some very severe floggings. One day when we had a smooth sea and moderate wind, 2 of my wearied countrymen, who on account of his illness was suffered to be out of irons, 2 of my weary countrymen who were chained together, I was near them at the time, preferring death to such a life of misery, somehow made through the nettings and jumped into the sea. Immediately, another quite dejected fellow, who on account of his illness was suffered to be out of irons, also followed their example, and I believe many more would very soon have done the same if they had not been prevented by the ship's crew, who were instantly alarmed. Those of us that were the most active were in a moment put down under the deck, and there was such a noise and confusion among the people of the ship as I had never heard before, to stop her and get the boat out to go after the slaves. However, 2 of the wretches were drowned, but they got the other, and afterwards flogged him unmercifully for thus attempting to prefer death to slavery. In this manner, we continue to undergo more hardships than I can now relate, hardships which are inseparable from this accursed trade. Many a time we were near suffocation from the want of fresh air, which we were often without for whole days together. This and the stench of the necessary tubs carried off many. During our passage, I first saw flying fishes, which surprised me very much. They used frequently to fly across the ship, and many of them fell on the deck. I also now first saw the use of the quadrant. I had often with astonishment seen the mariners make observations with it, and I could not think what it meant. They at last took notice of my surprise, and one of them, willing to increase it as well as to gratify my curiosity, made me one day look through it. The clouds appeared to me to be land, which disappeared as they passed along. This heightened my wonder, and I was now more persuaded than ever that I was in another world and that everything about me was magic. At last, we came in sight of the island of Barbados, at which the whites on board gave a great shout and made many signs of joy to us. We did not know what to think of this, but as the vessel drew nearer, we plainly saw the harbor and other ships of different kinds and sizes, and we soon anchored amongst them off Bridgetown. Many merchants and planters now came on board, though it was in the evening. They put us in separate parcels and examined us attentively. They also made us jump and pointed to the land, signifying we were to go there. We thought by this we should soon be eaten by these ugly men, as they appeared to us. And when soon after we were all put down under the deck again, there was much dread and trembling among us, and nothing but bitter cries to be heard all the night from these apprehensions, insomuch that at last the white people got some old slaves from the land to pacify us. They told us we were not to be eaten, but to work, and we were soon to go on land, where we should see many of our country people. This report eased us much, and sure enough, soon after we landed, there came to us Africans of all languages. We were conducted immediately to the merchant's yard, where we were all pent up together, like so many sheep in a fold, without regard to sex or age. We were not many days in the merchant's custody, where we were sold after their usual manner, which is this. On a signal given, as the beat of a drum, the buyers rush at once into the yard, where the slaves are confined, and make choice of that parcel they like best. So that is our first read. Here's a picture of the inside of a ship, where it shows the maximum amount of slaves that they would put on the ship, and they did not care how many were packed in. They knew some would die on the journey. Remember, this is a 6 or 7 month journey for this story. They didn't care. They just wanted to get as many over there alive as they possibly could. So basically, only the strongest would survive. So what we're going to do is highlight some things regarding the main idea, and we're going to base that on, first, factual information. So what I want to do is make sure I'm in markup, and I'm going to go ahead and click yellow for this, for factual information. Oh. If it'll cooperate with me. And then over here, I'm going to click on comment, click on my highlight, and just put factual info as a note to myself. And then I'm going to find another piece of factual information. And I think I'm going to choose this one from paragraph number 4. So I'm going to go back to markup. I'm talking about the fish. I'm going to make a comment. So here he's just stating a simple fact of what happened. There's no opinion really being given here. So comment, okay, and then factual info. So when you see these little green dots here, it's indicating that you have a comment on the side. The next thing I'm going to do is personal reflections. So this is where he's having, he's thinking to himself. He's processing things that he's witnessing, and he's creating an opinion in his mind. So right above this passage here, I'm going to go ahead and use beyond markup, go to green, I'm going to highlight this, make a comment. This is a personal reflection. Okay, so I've made my notes there. I'm going to find another one of personal reflection. And here, he's talking about when he saw the flying fishes that he had never seen before. Remember, he's leaving his homeland. He's leaving Africa, and he is on this ship. He's probably never been on a ship before. He's never been out to the ocean in this way. He's never seen flying fish. He also noticed that the sailors were using this tool called a quadrant. That's what sailors use to help navigate the ocean. And he was very curious about all of that. And it made him feel like everything was magical. So I'm going to go to markup, and this is a personal reflection. So I want to make sure I'm using the right color. So green. Markup. Okay, so I'm going to go to green. Right here. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, and then go to comment, make a comment about this. Oh, it's kind of weird. It acts up a little. I don't like that. I keep having to okay. So this is a personal reflection. And all this is meaning is like we're hearing about what he's thinking inside his head, right? We're hearing his opinion about what he's witnessing, all these strange things that he's never seen before. The next thing I'm looking for now is strong language. So I'm looking for some of those verbs and adjectives that really are just very descriptive. So there's a lot of that here, and he's talking about the quality of the air a lot and how they felt suffocated. So right here, here's some good the shrieks of the women and the groans of the dying rendered the whole scene of horror almost inconceivable. This whole area, the filth of the necessary tubs. I think those tubs, what he's referring to, are the toilets. So instead of, obviously there were no flushing toilets. So I would say here, I'm going to go to markup, text highlighter, and right here. Oh, it's so weird. Okay. I'm going to highlight that in a different color. I can hover over this, and then I'll choose pink for my descriptive stuff. I'm going to make a comment about it. Hopefully it won't be weird and act up on me. Okay, so this is descriptive language. And you can also, if you look at this above here, I'm going to put that in pink. Descriptive language again. So when you're annotating, you're actually like making notes on the side. So it's not just a matter of highlighting. You're also making notes by using the comment box. Okay, so let's get to our vocabulary. Loathsome. Now remember what I showed you last time with this? If you click on loathsome and you go to dictionary and then click on loathsome, it'll give you the definition: causing hatred or disgust, repulsive. So I want to highlight that, and I think I'll use blue for my vocab. And then I'm going to make a note. So if you hover over the word, you'll get these, and maybe this is easier than dealing with the stuff over on the left. So loathsome is disgusting, vile, gross, those kind of words. Okay, next one is wretched. So the nice thing is they've already highlighted the word in the text for us. So I'm going to go to dictionary, click on the word. In a very unhappy or unfortunate state. So I think that that is probably the best definition in the context it's being used here. So in a very unhappy or unfortunate state. So I'm going to make a comment: very unhappy, unfortunate state of mind or being. Of course, if you're a slave on a slave ship, you're feeling pretty wretched. So this word here is blue. That's my vocab. And then I'm going to go down to dejected. And I'm going to highlight that in blue. I'm going to click dictionary. It's going to tell me what it means. Sad and depressed, dispirited. So I'm just going to make a note. So hover over the word, if it'll let us. Okay, comment. Let me go here. What else did it say? It was, go back to dictionary, click on the word, sad and depressed, dispirited. Okay. So I want to edit. Well, I'll just add this. So dejected is feeling sad or depressed, unhappy. Okay. All right. So I've gotten my factual part of some of my factual examples. I've got some personal reflection examples, some strong language that is in pink. And I also have my vocabulary. So that's the basic annotation. There's words in here that, of course, that we're coming across that we are not going to initially understand. But if you read around the word and you just keep reading and try to get the context, sometimes we can figure that out. Then if you want to go back and take another look and look at the image, try to put yourself in his shoes. Try to put yourself in his situation. Imagine being ripped away from your family, being put on a ship, and in the bottom of a ship, chained up for 6 or 7 months, and then you get off the ship and then you're sold to your master, and that's your life now. So overall, we're looking at what the main idea and purpose is behind this. Why do you think that he wrote this? Yes, we know he of course, he wants to capture that experience. He wants to tell people about it, but why does he want to tell people about this situation? Do you think anybody cares about this? So we will talk about that more in class.